Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's Jose here, welcoming you to another musings, another thoughts sharing, another sort of rumblings thing, instigated by a conversation that I had last Friday over at Steve Talks Books channel, where at some point we were talking about book buying and how long TBRs might be, etc., etc. And there were also people talking about reading slumps. And, have I ever gone through a reading slump? And I think I maybe had one in my whole life. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is that reading slumps are not for me. I've really, maybe once I had a reading slump. And so what is a reading slump? So I went to the Urban Dictionary, which is that source of reliable and accurate information out there on the internet, and I had a look at what is a reading slump. And maybe perhaps that's not a definition enough for you, so you can sort of Google reading slump and you get all these sort of things. So basically, turns out what happens maybe perhaps is that you're going through a reading slump because of external factors to your enjoyment reading activity. So perhaps maybe you're stressed and you don't know. Maybe there's stuff going on, wife, kids, work, family, whatever. And that's why you don't feel like reading is too much of an effort, so on. So me not being a psychologist, me not being a life coach, me not being someone that you should listen to, maybe you need to sort out your life before you can start enjoying reading again. Whatever that might entail, I don't know. Or maybe, perhaps, you need another hobby. Maybe you need something that takes your mind off things and helps you relax and so on. And have you ever considered taking up long distance running? Because it can be as addictive and as exciting and as enjoyable as reading, or perhaps more. I don't know, it certainly does work for me, although my last two runs really sucked. So you need to embrace the suck and just, find something to get you going. My other theory, and here again I could be the crazy one, maybe I'm wrong, but perhaps you're reading too much, and perhaps you're reading too much of the same thing. So, what I found out this year, what has really helped. So last year, if you may or may not be aware, I did the whole Wheel of Time read-along thing with Ian from B&B Books, where we were reading one book a month of the Wheel of Time. And if you're someone like me, who you got your job, but you've also got a family, I've got two young boys, I don't have that much time to read. I'm not one of those booktubers that will show you end of month wrap up. I've read 20 books. That's not going to happen in a long, long time. So throughout 2021, when I was doing the Wheel of Time thing, it got a little bit like I'm reading too much of the same thing. The little time I had for reading was all Wheel of Time, and each book gets just longer and longer, and it wasn't that enjoyable. After Wheel of Time, what I've done is mix it up. I've picked up the odd trilogy, the odd series here or there, but then in between, like I said, just mix it up. Read all the genres, the other authors, other things. And what I found out is that having a book of short stories works really well. So I've got the Conan stories. All of them is like by itself, it's like 1,000 pages long. It's a big book, but instead of reading it back to back, in between books, I'll pick a story. I'll read a short story, move on to the next book, pick a short story, move on to the next book. And that really does clear the mind in between books, in between worlds, in between settings, in between whatever you're doing. So it's quite nice to maybe read a tetralogy, Rainwell Chronicles, maybe stop after book 3, read a short story, go back to the 4th book, then read a short story, pick up the next book, something completely different, historical fiction, next book, short story, mix it up. I think that really helps. dare I say, people, non-fiction. Pick up a non-fiction book. I don't know. There's stuff out there that maybe right up your street, whatever you are into, maybe read something like that. I for sure have a beer tasting guide thing there in the works at some point. I want to pick up. I think short horror stories is a nice one to have in the background there. So kind of, in a way, broaden your horizons, read new things, different authors, just mix it up basically. That will keep entertaining for you. Kind of maybe related to that, if you didn't do so, please check out my Discworld conversation that I had with Derry a couple of Sundays ago. Watch out for the money shot, that moment where both Derry and I just broke down and cried while we were talking about Discworld and Sir Terry Pratchett. But anyway, after that conversation finished, we carried on chatting for another hour and a half offline. We just talking books and stuff, etc., live. Now, particularly for people that have got a booktube channel, Derry and I, we sort of concurred, we agreed that some people don't seem to be in it for the love of reading. And turns out there's apparently two different hobbies, one being book reading, one being book buying or book collecting. And if you got a TBR longer than 5 books, in my opinion, you got a problem. And if you got a TBR, which is about 200, 250, like some, you're not reading, you're book collecting. You just want to display your bookcases. You're going to show off to the world your book collection. And your reaction there is, look at the books that I've got, as opposed to me, which is look at the books I've read. These are like my trophies. Like, I go running, I get the T-shirt for the race, or I get a medal, I display them, I've completed that. That's what my bookshelves tell, what I've read, not what I have, not what I intend to read in 5 years' time. Because if you got a 250 book TBR, that's the next decade worth of reading there, isn't it? Almost, type thing. So maybe by having a booktube channel, maybe by doing all these book hauls, maybe by acquiring all these books, you're putting undue pressure and undue stress on yourself. Maybe this, for whatever the reason, subconsciously, there's this keeping up with the, I was going to say Joneses, but whoever booktuber is it that, and I have kind of experienced a little bit of that, but you've got to be able to detach yourself, take a step back and remember why you're doing this. And if you're doing this for the love of book collecting, go ahead. But maybe you should have children and find something else to pour your money and your efforts or whatever. But if you don't and you just like book collecting, by all means, go ahead. Who am I to judge anyone? But if you're doing it for the love of reading, maybe think about what it's doing to you. And if you're reading slump is because you're too stressed about reading, this is becoming not enjoyable. This is not really the joy of reading, the passion that we readers have for that cannot go away, isn't it? Last week, a couple of times, I had a couple of runs. I couldn't finish my runs. I set up with an objective, had to stop halfway. I went for a speed interval training session. I couldn't complete the last quarter. Maybe my body's telling me, slow down. Maybe it's just too hot. Maybe I'm trying to do too much. Maybe a reading slump is your brain telling you, look, mate, you got to take a step back. You got to recharge. You got to approach this differently. Maybe, perhaps, those are the things. Maybe that's why when you can only read 2, maybe 3 books a month, like me, I never get to that burnout stage because there's no opportunity, because I just haven't got the time to do that. Mix and match. Find something else in your life. Find something else that fulfills you. Maybe. Or not, or just ignore me. I don't know. What do you think? Comments below. Always happy to have discussions, conversations. The last two I had in July were really enjoyable. I'm hoping to get something else going, a couple more things. So more than happy. Anyone ever feels like just shooting the breeze, totally in structure or any specific topic, whatever you want. Baby, that's right. So, thank you ever so much for watching. As usual, take loads and loads of care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.